Hello, I'm Simon and welcome back to the Bookster podcast from inside the SaaS holiday rental software company, Bookster, based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Follow along as Bookster discuss their inner workings and their journey to where they are today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you find these conversations insightful but ultimately helpful. Today, as always, I am joined by Robin Morris. Welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning.
Nice to see you again. It's been a little while since we've done one of these.
Yes, there's been a wee bit of a break, hasn't there yet? Yeah.
Hiatus, but nice to be back.
Yeah.
And today we're joined by Jonny Brannan again, Account Manager for Bookster. Jonny, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Simon.
Nice to see you again.
Jonny's the only one who has an authentic-looking podcast microphone.
He is. He's the only professional podcaster out of the three, let's be honest. But no, the last episode we did was on the visitor levy, which was a very interesting topic. And this episode, we're going to be talking about demos, what form they take, how you do them, and sort of what happens in a demo with Bookster. But maybe, Robin, first of all, we could start with where does a demonstration come in the process of a client onboarding with Bookster?
Yeah, so it's a little bit down the road of the sales funnel, I suppose, as you might call it, where our prospective client might have seen Bookster quite a few times, been on our website or seen us at a show or seen us on social media or something and has clicked around. They'll know a reasonable amount about Bookster by the time they actually get into a demo. They will have requested a demo directly in order to end up getting one. So they'll either have requested one through our website, or they might have done it through something like Facebook. So at that point, they have a reasonable bit of knowledge of who we are and where we fit in, and they don't come to us totally blank. They're usually reasonably knowledgeable. The other way that they might come to us is if they've registered for Bookster. So you can, in theory, well, not just in theory, in practice, you can just sign up for Bookster and start using it yourself and pay for it and just become a client that way. And we fully encourage anyone who's listening to do that, because then Jonny doesn't have to do a demo at all. He'd be delighted. But in actual fact, so they may well come to us that way. They might register, not do very much, and then Jonny would potentially reach out to them and say, look, you've registered. I can see that you probably, you do have holiday rentals, maybe through the domain of the email address that they've registered on or something. And, would you like an actual demo of Bookster? So that's when, we're perhaps being a bit more proactive, trying to encourage them to do a demo. And actually, even if they registered and paid themselves, I suspect either we might still try to do a demo, but we would certainly very quickly want to be speaking to them and doing a proper onboarding, etc. Which the demo, partly some of that information is contained within a demo, so it's useful for people to have one almost even if they have decided to or have already kind of committed to use Bookster. So it kind of fulfills a couple of jobs, I suppose, really, in a way. So yeah, perhaps Jonny, you might want to talk about maybe your evolution, I suppose, perhaps on demos and where you started and how you go about it now.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the first things is to probably break down what a demo is. So a demonstration, just shortened down to demo. So be that a video call or very occasionally an in-person meeting where we can go through the software together, looking at the features and functionality of Bookster, and really how that fits in to the lead or the prospect who's attending the demo, how that works into what problems they have, how can Bookster solve them, and also what goals they have, whether that's to increase bookings, increase revenue, make the whole process of managing their holiday rentals easier, dealing with guest communications. So we're kind of looking at the software as a whole and how that can work for them. And Robin touched on it as well, with people occasionally just signing up by themselves. They can completely self-sign up with Bookster. And yeah, again, that's great. But there's downsides to people not having a demo. There's part of that would be the kind of qualification process. So if I can get someone on a phone call first and we have a bit of a chat about their business, what kind of properties they have, some of the ways that they operate, that's a nice way just to confirm, yes, Bookster's going to work for you. And occasionally you'll get people who sign up who are great clients. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what they want. And then every so often you'll get someone who signs up and a little bit down the road, they realize maybe Bookster wasn't what was suitable for them. And so usually if they were on a demo, we can figure that out in the process. And that saves both parties a little bit of time. But in terms of where I started with demos, I started at Bookster in 2020. And my initial demo process was, I guess, very feature and software focused. At the time, I was learning the ins and outs of Bookster, how it worked, and really trying to show off the best bits to clients. Oh, I think they would love this. And it works sometimes, but eventually, especially during lockdown, I tried to do some sales courses and really try and improve my kind of process for the demos. And I learned that, or came to the realization that the leads or the prospects, they don't always care about what we think is great about the software. So they want what can fix their problems, and they want help to reach their goals. So as much as possible, ideally, like I mentioned, if I can get an initial phone call before scheduling a demo, it means that I can do a little bit of research and kind of ascertain what they're looking for from Bookster, and really their reasons for looking at the software and booking in the demo. And sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to get people to open up. So one of the things that you want to find out is their pain points, if you will, or their problems that they want to solve. And usually if you ask someone what their problems are, they're not going, if you ask it so directly, they're maybe not going to be as honest, or they're just going to say they've got a bit of an interest. So a really good way that I learned was to use what we call probing questions. And that helps them to kind of expand on the problems that they're facing by their current method of working, whether that's with an alternative software currently or no software at all, and really ensure them that Bookster can fix the problems and make their life easier. And I guess provided that Bookster actually can. So if someone comes to Bookster and says, here's my problem, and I know we can't solve it, it's no good for either party if I say, yeah, you should try Bookster anyway. It gives us a little bit of money for a month and then they leave, but we've spent time, effort with the rest of the team bringing them on board.
Also,
so it's good to know.
They may well leave a pretty horrible review and say, I was missold this or whatever. So it's in no one's interest that someone comes on thinking that we're going to solve the problem.
That's quite interesting in itself, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of bigger companies might just sort of get away with it but you guys are quite honest up front and say, well, you're not right for us, or we're not right for you, perhaps, and that must go down well with the client, I would have thought.
I think so, yeah. And oftentimes there's people who are, maybe their decision is between a software and self-managing and looking at a potential agency to deal with it for them. And usually people are quite upfront with that kind of decision that's on their hands. And if they say, I don't have a lot of time, or I really don't want to deal with this, then quite a lot of the time I can say, well, we've got agency clients all around the UK. Where are you located? And I can put you in touch with one of our existing clients.
Right.
And that way they're still getting a good result, even just from that initial chat, even if they don't become a Bookster client already. So part of that, I guess it's ethical sales, if you will,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
which I guess everybody wins it in that side. Nobody's going to leave us a bad review because we've not tried to force them to use Bookster.
Yeah. So,
But
in terms of when you do the demonstrations, and I guess from what you're saying, you want it to be as early on in the process as possible to save any heartache from either part of you. So, or either party. So, how quickly would you want a demonstration to take place, basically?
yeah, the sooner the better, ideally. So if, like I said, we get inbound leads, whether that's from demo requests or registrations or Facebook adverts. So if someone picks up the phone, I can get a little bit of understanding about their business. And the ideal scenario is, are you free later today or tomorrow? So that Bookster's still on their mind.
Right.
Oftentimes it's not feasible. People are working other jobs as well, or they've got time commitments elsewhere. So really, we want to get that demo booked as soon as possible, and that usually increases the chances of them showing up and appearing to the call.
So do
And
you?
then we.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to touch on once we are there, trying to get them to open up. So I touched on those probing questions. So instead of saying what's your problems, how can we solve them, it's more of a what's made you book a demo, but the emphasis isn't on the what, it's what's made you book a demo now, what's made you interested in Bookster now.
Right.
And they can have a think, okay, well, this is the problem that I'm having. Just for example, the channel manager they're currently using is giving them double bookings, it's not synchronizing well enough for them, and it's causing them problems. Okay, and then we can dive deeper into that. How long has that been going on? They'll tell you how long that's been going on. Is there any other examples of things like this? So now they're telling me about the problems that they're having with either an existing software or the problems that they're facing without a software. And from there, now I've got the examples of the problems that they're facing. And now I know the problems. I know if we can solve them, which more often than not, we can. So there's the solution. Well, Bookster can do X, Y, Z. Your problem's been going on for X amount of time. Let's get that solved now with this process. 1, 2, 3. So that's the goal,
Yep.
and that makes it sound a lot easier than it can be.
Sure. I mean, is this process easier in person, or is it always online, or what do you prefer?
I would say 99% of the time it's video calls, and allows everyone a little bit of flexibility with time or wherever they're located. And then every so often we'll get somebody who maybe want to come in and meet us in the office, or Robin and I have recently been invited out to a farm to kind of take a look at their holiday lets and look through the software together. And well, video demonstrations are great. I think there's something about building rapport in person, being able to kind of gauge the, for lack of a better word, vibe of the person, of the room, and you know what it's like on a video call. Sometimes issues, people talking over each other or whatever. So I would love it if everybody wanted to come and meet in person. But we've got clients all over Europe and some across bigger ponds, so it's not always feasible.
Yeah, we'll start sending you out to these places pretty soon, Johnny. Maybe Mauritius, Bahamas. You up for that?
I'll come back with a lovely tan and lots more clients.
Clients in the Caribbean would be lovely.
I think one question, if if you're listening to this and you've maybe got your own, or trying to start your own software company, or you're trying to sell software as a service, might be why bother with demos at all? Why do that? So, why just not let people sign up themselves, or have a few emails going backwards and forwards, or having a video like of your software that runs through things or whatever. And certainly, for a long period of time, when we maybe had this, well, maybe slightly atypical journey where Bookster was not always the main thing that we were doing. It was kind of more of a side hustle, and we were just, it was something that happened in the background, and we didn't actually have a salesperson doing anything or nobody that would give demos or whatever. And so it was very much, ad hoc, word of mouth, or we did allow people to sign up. And it's quite difficult to get any sort of traction, really, to get anyone to sign up or use it themselves, especially when it's what we're actually selling is actually quite core to someone's business. It's not a little utility that they're using every so often. It's kind of like their day-to-day running of their business. So I think given that that is the case, you have to build up a bit of trust, and they have to have confidence in what you're doing, and the rapport, as Johnny's talking about, where it's like, we trust these people, we understand what they're trying to do, we understand the direction they're going in. Yes, they're doing exactly the right of things, or at least it's a very good fit for my business. Like it's representative of what I'm trying to do as a business, and most of that is much easier to achieve in a demo than it is in a video, or which people probably wouldn't watch or they might not engage with or whatever. So that's, I think, it for us anyway, and I think for a lot, if you're trying to run software that is mission critical for another business, I suspect something like this is always going to be required.
And is doing these demos, do they highlight issues? I mean, after a demo, would you go back and have a chat and say, well, actually, this person's highlight, they want to do this. Maybe we need to talk about this between ourselves, and develop the process or the software a bit more based on a demo. Is that what's happen? Or
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of times there's people will have they'll have questions. So again, another reason why just having a video that says here's what Bookster does wouldn't be ideal. They're going to have 100 questions, and more often than not, if they watch that video, they're probably never going to email, or they're never going to get in touch or give you a phone call to ask those questions. The questions haven't been answered and they're going to leave. Whereas if we're talking, then somebody can ask those questions then and there and get their answer. But a lot of the time, some people have a way that they want to work or something that they want to get out of it. And so occasionally we'll come back and say, okay, this person is interested in Bookster, but they want X, Y, or Z. And we have to look at that and say, well, we have a solution. It's just slightly different to the way they operate at the moment. In which case we can say, we can still get you that same end result in a slightly different way, which is great. Sometimes they say, oh, we want this thing. And sometimes that's just something that we don't have. So we would say, I would speak to Robin and we'll say, okay, well, let's discuss it at a planning session. And then it comes down to, I guess, a priority side of things. If one person is asking for it and nobody else, none of the people who are already our clients need this or want this, is that worth our time, money, and effort to develop this one thing for one person?
Also, I think what's quite useful as well is if there can be a kind of like, especially if we attend some events or whatever, there could be some sort of industry chatter about something like dynamic pricing or AI or, I don't know, unified inboxes or something, or connecting to a particular channel, stuff like that. And what is potentially interesting is if those things are raised at the demos, then it's kind of filtered down to a certain point. But also, it might be useful to know, why are you asking that? What do you think it'll save you time? Do you think it'll make you more money? Are you just asking it? I mean, don't know how often this happens, more one for Jonny, but you do get some people that are just, they're comparing like a spreadsheet almost. They're like checking a bunch of features against one bit of software and another. And they're not necessarily fully thinking about, well, okay, both of these things have a channel manager, tick, right, I'll just tick that box. But are they kind of aware that, you know, one might not be quite as reliable as another, so you might end up getting double bookings anyway, or it might not have the direct connection to Airbnb that you actually really probably need to make the most of a channel manager. Or it might be a channel manager that's designed for hotels rather than holiday rentals. So they've just ticked the box. But it's like, well, why? You know, you're asking this question, but why are you asking the question? What's the underlying thing? You just heard that dynamic pricing is a good idea because someone told you that at a conference. What is it that you hope to get out of it? What is it that you are thinking? Is it saving you time? Is it making you more money? What is it that you're thinking that you might get out of this? And it's kind of quite good to drill down into that, I think, and get a little bit more.
Then you can offer the sort of real world answers to those questions, I guess.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's
Dynamic pricing might not be the best thing to go for.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's like, well, actually, have you thought about it? What problem are you trying to solve here? Or, yeah, we just are getting some feedback from prospective clients. But yeah, it's quite nice to be able to turn it around and go, look, what problem are you trying to solve? What are you trying to actually fix by looking to tick that box on your spreadsheet? So yeah.
So, I mean, we've spent quite a long time talking about the positives of demos and doing them. There must be, maybe there's not, but I assume that if people book a demo and then cancel it or don't cancel it, then that's sort of a waste of your time and energy. I mean, is there any sort of anecdotes about that happening in Bookster?
Yeah, well, last week, for example, I think a week ago on Friday, I think I booked in 4 demos for the following week, and Robin will attest, whenever something like that happens, it puts me in a very good mood. I know I've got people that are coming into that funnel and people to speak to, and that's very exciting. And on day one, the first person didn't show up, no communication, and then it's more often than not, it'll go radio silent if they haven't shown up, whether that's out of embarrassment that they haven't shown up and they don't want to do that again, or whether they just said they wanted to book the demo in order to get me off the phone call.
Right.
Sometimes you can't figure that out. So it's, people not showing up is an issue. I would say somewhere between 20 and 30% of the time it can happen. More often than not, you might be able to tell if you do get that initial conversation in on a phone call. People who do show up are typically more engaged. They've got a lot more questions, and especially when you get onto the demo, they have a lot more questions and they want to know more. A lot more back and forth and conversational. And then if people do kind of get to that demo stage, but they don't have many questions, they're not as engaged, they're a little disinterested, it feels like you're kind of doing a show and tell rather than having a discussion. So it is a two-way street in a way for the demos. And no shows are the bane of this job, but it's part and parcel. I always say the worst thing that someone can do is say no when I'm on the initial phone call, and then the second worst is not showing up when they've booked.
Is there? Have you ever considered a sort of deposit scheme for a demo, and you get your money back when you turn up, or money off when you take out the package or whatever?
Well, I think we want to try and keep that barrier to entry as low as possible, and I think maybe that would restrict a few people from showing up. Should we ever implement that?
Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair
it's
enough.
difficult to know how to. I mean, obviously, sometimes genuinely people just forget. Or they've got other things that prioritize, and it's it's not always. It's probably very rarely in bad faith. It's probably sometimes I think you're right, John. They just want to get you off the call or whatever, and think, oh yeah, I'll agree to that.
Yeah,
If I don't really have to show up to it, it's all right.
There's never any malice in it.
I suspect also they're probably not really just thinking, oh, there is somebody who's put, an hour aside of their time here. So they're like, oh, someone's trying to sell me something. And, I suppose ultimately we are, so we have to accept that. But, it's, they possibly don't think, oh, well, there's someone there who's, committed an hour, and now no one else can book a demo in at that time slot or whatever. Or Johnny can't go and take the dog for a walk or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe at the start as well, in terms of kind of how things changed, maybe used to take it a little bit more personally. You're like, oh, they didn't show up. And then you kind of, a few years down the line, if you've signed up to a software or you've signed up to something or other, and somebody from that company tries to reach out, you're never really going to answer. You're either going to answer the phone and get off the phone as quickly as possible, or you're not going to pick up the phone. So you start to see it from everybody else's perspective as well. But then when the people do either phone back or they do show up to the demo and they show genuine interest, then it makes things a lot easier.
Guys, this has been quite an interesting chat again about demos. We'd obviously encourage anyone interested in Bookster to get a demo booked. But as it's sort of December, I guess it's sort of next year now, is it? We're talking, or have you still got spaces this year if anyone's interested?
Yeah, there is still spaces if people are interested. If people are listening to this, then do get in touch. What we often always see, in particularly December and January, is a lot of people booking their next year's holidays. Obviously, this is guests and not people who run the holiday rentals.
Yeah.
But if you are running holiday rentals and you think, I want to get my bookings, fill up the calendar for summer next year or for Easter, this is the sort of time people are making those bookings and looking at their holidays or wherever they're going to be going. So yeah, definitely worth reaching out, and we can increase your exposure.
Nice, well put. All right, lovely. That sounds like a good place to stop then, guys. We've been sort of almost half an hour there, which I think is, like I say, a very interesting half an hour. So thank you for your time. Jonny, thanks again for coming on the podcast, and we'll look forward to your next appearance.
Thanks for having me, Simon.
And Robin, thanks for your time again as well.
Thank you.
All I guess that's left to be said is season's greetings for everyone listening at this time of year. I hope everyone has a festive period that's fun and enjoyable. I hope you guys do as well. And we'll see everyone on the next podcast, I guess, in 2026.
Probably, most likely 2026. Yeah, okay.
Well, until then, take care and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.